खेल रहे, मैं आऊं? मैं आ रही आऊं मैं। अब जिसने 3 डाल गया उसका ले लो। एक मनीष का। ओ।
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone are doing great. Let me share my screen quick. All right. The last session, we have looked at what actually the topics which I have completed. We did completed the topics for DB, right? Database. And we try to look about the theoretical understanding of the database. And we try to have a lab sessions for the DynamoDB. And we try to understand the differences between relational database and non-relational databases, correct? I hope everyone got an overview of what is a database. Any doubts on the last topic so that we can quickly jump into next one? Any doubts? Any doubts on the last? All right. So the final module which we can try to discuss, that is pending with identity and access management, that is IAM. So we'll go ahead with that. So what is IAM? IAM is nothing but identity and access management. What is identity and access management? It is nothing but authentication and user group level authentications and permissions management. You can see, so everywhere it is important for a user to be created and that has to be logged into the console, correct? For AWS console, which I'm trying to log in here currently, which I'm trying to log in with root user account, correct? So that means root user is nothing but administrator. So me being an admin, I'm able to log in with my root user so that once I log in, there is a service called IAM inside the console. So I can try to create multiple users with my account, with the main administration account. You can see this is nothing but an IAM over here. It is used to manage access to the AWS resources. Okay, let us try to understand what are the characteristics with the IAM will. Are you able to see my console screen, right? The IAM dashboard, okay. So what happens here with identity and access management, we can specify who or what can access the services and resources in AWS. Okay, it is nothing but centralized, managed, permission level and analyze access to the refined permissions across AWS. Okay, so how it is going to help? For example, if I'm being a root user, this is nothing but an account ID. I've got that account. So I'm me being a root user account. I am able to access the users, the services, and the different parts of the services. I can try to build up the infrastructure. Correct. In the same way, if I need to give someone access to the dashboard, who can try to access specific resources like specific services or specific activities, I am able to do that from my end with the help of IAM. So what happens, for example, in a company, I've been actually recruited with an AWS admin. Okay. So in the same company, there are some sub teams like sub members in my team where I need to give an access or the company is working. For example, in the same company, there are developers, network admins, and database admins. So what happens, I want to give access to the AWS console for them so that they can try to do their projects. So what happened, if I try to give access to the database admin to the complete administrator account for this console, he doesn't know other services because he had a good knowledge on the database architecture, correct? He doesn't have an access knowledge on the compute, storage level, networking aspects. So without the knowledge, so I cannot give the permissions to other services. So there is no point giving him to access as well because he might try to misconfigure the settings or the infrastructure within this console. So what I'm trying to do, I'll try to create an account for with his name, like a user with an DB admin, and then I'll try to give an access to only DynamoDB. Okay, I can try to give him access to RDS. In the same way, for example, in the same company, there is one more network admin. I want to give him access because he is a network admin. He want to do some network architecture within the console. So what I do, I'll try to create another user with his name, like a network admin, and I'll give an access to the only VPC. Simple. Okay, so that he can try to architecture the VPC structure, right? So that's how I can try to do that. In the same way, if I want to give an access to some other service like a developer who wants to work on the developing applications, then there are developing applications which I can access to. So I can try to see this is Elastic Beanstalk. It is kind of a developing app. He doesn't have any knowledge on other services because I cannot give access to S3, VPC, and the database because he's not from that background. So rather he touches all these services within the console. I'm securely trying to create an user account with the permissions to access those specific services only. In the same way, I'll assign the policies. Policies means I'm trying to assign the permissions. I'll try to assign the roles. These are nothing but a different options which are available. Okay, we'll try to do that. I'll create a service, user accounts for such requirements. You can see IAM uses access control concepts that you are already familiar with. We can create a user. We can try to create a role. What is a role? I'll try to create a role. Okay, he is the admin. He is the database admin. He is the network admin. I'll try to create a role. So what is the role? I'll try to create a role. So if I assign this role to him, so he'll try to access only specific DB services. This network admin access specific network services only. Okay, I'll try to manage that permissions with the help of policies. Policies are nothing but the configurations of the permissions. Okay, group is nothing but rather than assigning each user. For example, I can try to create a permissions. I can try to create a role for each user. So it will be time-taking task. If there are multiple users, okay, if there are around 10 users from belonging from a database group, then what I'm trying to do, I'll try to create a group and assign those all database users into a group. And then I'll assign single role to them. The role which is nothing but a database role. I'll assign to this group so that this particular group of people can access only database services. So that's how it is going to be. Okay. So we have users, groups, roles, and permissions within the IAM. Even this is one of the important topics. So AWS Identity and Access Management, it is a control and centralized architecture, fine-grained APIs. It does have an APIs. It works with the linkage of the APIs for any projects within to control the resources and AWS management console. Okay. And the security wise, it is security deny by default. It will by default, all the permissions will be in a block, like denial mode. And you need to actually try to enable the permissions by configuring the roles and the policies. And multiple users, individual security credentials, and the permissions. So you can try to create multiple users. You can try to configure permissions for individual security and try to assign the permissions. That's how it is going to help out. Okay. And if you look at the IAM components here, defined in your AWS account, use credentials to authenticate programmatically or via the AWS management console. It means you can try to create your own credentials, okay, so that it will try to generate a username and password to us. Or we can try to provide a programmatic access. What is a programmatic access? Like developers who need to work on the projects, they'll try to write some code, right? Coding in .C, .NET, and any Java applications. So for them also, we can try to create the credentials based on the programmatic language like SDKs. We'll call that as a software development kits. So it will try to, these authentication will support to the developing applications as well. That's what the programmatic access. Okay. So that is nothing but an IAM user. IAM users actually will be created, which will try to generate credentials for you. We can try to create a user. What is a group? A collections of IAM users that are granted an identical authorization. What is a group means? Rather than assigning permissions to each user, I'll try to create a group and I'll name a group, and then I'll try to pull all the persons into that specific group and assign single permissions. It is nothing but a collections of IAM users, right? And we have IAM policy as well. What is the policy? It defines which resources can be accessed and the level of access of the each resource. Okay. So what happens here? We'll try to create a policy. What is the policy? As I told you, he's a database admin. I'll try to assign one policy. He's a network admin. I'll try to create one policy. He's a developer. I'll try to create a policy and assign this policy to this user, or else I'll assign this policy to this entire group. that comes under the policy section. We'll create that in the lab actually. We'll try to see how it works. Okay. And IAM roles. It is a mechanism to grant temporary access for making AWS service request, assumably by a person, application, or a service. So what happens? IAM users actually created for directly, these IAM users, groups, and policies are created for the users. Like individual users, these will be applied. IAM roles will be assigned directly to the AWS services, not to the users. Okay. What happens with the benefit of the IAM role? If we try to create the permission directly to the AWS service, it is not required for me to assign the user level permissions. So if I try to create role and I'll try to assign that role to the service, then I can try to control the permission level of AWS services as well. Like for example, even the EC2 service, I can try to create a role so that the person who is accessing that particular service, they have a specific permissions. That is possible with the IAM role. These are differences between these four options like users, groups, policies, and roles. Okay. You can see I've created IAM users and the role or IAM group. Okay. So you can try to give full access. What full access? These particular users have been granted full access to access Amazon EC2 instances. Okay. But the same users have granted read access only for S3 bucket because the data is important. I doesn't want to give full permissions to him. I have given full permissions for that user to create an EC2 instances, but not deleting or modifying the storage in the Amazon S3 because I'm trying to give only the read-only access. In this way, I can try to control the permissions. Okay. So let me try to create the same scenario now, how it looks like for you. So that will make us understand more. For example, I'll try to create users over here. Add user. So let me try to create EC2 user. Okay. Click on next. It is asking, I have created an EC2 user. Is asking, you want to add this user to group? Yes or no? Or you want to copy the permissions from existing user? You can try to click on this. You want to attach policies? You can try to click that. Let me go with a step-by-step process. I'm only creating the user without any permissions. Let me click on the next. Okay. I did not added anything. You can see. I just created a user. I did not give any permissions. I'm creating a create user. This is a EC2 user. Okay. So if I want to create one more user, for example, with an authentication, I'll try to do that as well. I'll go to user again. EC2 user. I'll give access to the console. You can see. And he's telling, you want to create with an identity access or the IAM user. I want to create IAM user here. Okay. Now it is asking, you want a default username and a password, or you want to create a own username and a password. I'm telling that I want to create a username and a password. Okay. Let me try to log in here. So what I'll try to give, I'll give a password as admin123. Next. So it is not meeting the policies. I'll try to give as admin@123. I created a user with this username and the password. So click on next. I'm not attaching any permissions. Click on create user. This is done. You can see this is the console URL. This is the username. This is the password. Okay. So what I'll try to do, I'll open a new window. console.aws.amazon.com. So what actually I'll try to do. See, you can see it is trying to have me download the credentials as well. Download.csv. Okay. When I'm trying to open this file, even you being an admin, you can try to create credentials and send out to the administrators who want to access your console. Now I got a console link. I can try to access. You can see, I'll try to open this console link. I'll open this. It is going to the login page. You can see this is an ExcelR, right? Console which I've given. Now it is asking me username and the password. Like that is nothing but IAM username and the password. But when I'm trying to log in with my admin account, this is nothing but a root account, root user email. This is what I've logged in here. You can see that, right? this is nothing but a root administrator account where I need to log in this way. But when I want to log into the IAM, you need to click on IAM username and the password. So what is the username and the password I generated here? This is the username, correct? Let me access this. And the password is admin@1. Let me see. I can log in. So quickly I created a user so that user can log in to the console in this way. If I try to provide you this link to you guys, so even you will be able to log in this. Now, what difference we need to observe here? It is completely new console for the EC2 user. That means he's kind of a database admin, for example. He want to access to this console. So let me see if this person got that access to any services. Let me see that. I'll open the compute. Let me try to launch the server, and this is a new console. Okay. Let me try to see it is loading. C2. See, it is telling that error occurring checked and default VPC. It means it is actually showing the denial. There were error while checking the scheduled events. Let me open the S3 as well. That means this particular account doesn't got access to launch any AWS services because of the permission issue. Because I'm being an administrator, I did not provide any access to him. Even I did not give him read access or the write access. Okay. If I try to create any bucket, for example, you see, you don't have any permissions to get the storage details. Okay, S3 I'm not able to access. And I'll open the database as well. I hope even it doesn't have any access to this. You can see error loading resource. Why? EC2 user. This is the user, right? Which I've created now. He is not authorized to perform any DB operations because no identity-based policy allows to this RDS service. The reason because I did not give any access to this particular services. Even I did not give read access, I did not give write access or anything, right? Even I did not give any access to say any buckets inside the S3 as well. That's why I'm not able to see any information here. That's how I'm able to control the permissions. You can see, I'm not able to see anything, correct? So what I'll try to do, I'll go to my main administrator account. You can see this, right? I'll go to the user section. So I'll go to the user section here. So you can see I'm opening the user. This is the user I've created. Okay. So what permission it has? It has no policies. That means I did not give any access or any permissions to the policies. Correct? Permissions are nothing but permissions are defined by policies attached to the user directly to the groups. What I'll try to do, I'll add the permissions to that particular IAM user. Okay. So I'll clone this. Attach the policies directly. You can see it is telling to attach the policies directly. So which permissions I need to add here? For example, I want to give access to EC2 user. Okay. So you can see Amazon EC2 full access. He is telling Amazon EC2 full access. You want full administrator access to launch the instances or only read-only access. So for example, based on this snippet, what I'm trying to give, I create a user. I'm giving full access to the Amazon EC2. Okay. So what I'll try to do, I'll click on Amazon EC2 full access. That is fine. I'll click on next. I'm clicking on add permissions. That is fine. So next step, what he's trying to do, let us go and try to verify first. Okay. If I've got the full access or not. I'll go to EC2. Now you can see, you doesn't see any issues here. No permission issues now. Because you are able to see the read access and you can try to see all the options. When I try to click on launch instance also, it will help me in logging the server. You can see it is everything is coming up. That means now there are no permission issues. Simple. Correct? Exactly, correct. So what I'll try to do, now EC2 access has been granted full access. Okay. For example, if I try to go to the main account, let me see any S3 buckets are there in the root admin account. I want to see if buckets are visible in the main account or not. Now you can see in the main account, I can see all the S3 buckets. Now what I'm trying to tell, I want to give read access to this particular EC2 user, only the read access for this S3 bucket. Okay, let me try to do the same thing. So what I'll go there, I'll go to the admin account, I'll go to the IAM. So to give the read access, what I need to do, I'll again go to the permissions because I've already given the EC2 full access here, and I'll give the permissions, add permissions, attach direct policies. Now I need to type S3. S3 means what is thing you can see Amazon S3 full access, Amazon S3 read access, and S3 storage lens and full access for specific services like Redshift as well. So I'll try to give only Amazon S3 read access. Okay, I'll click on next. Read means I should actually try to see the buckets in the IAM user with the help of EC2 user, but I shouldn't be able to create or modify the S3 bucket. That is a policy I want to create. Okay, I've added this policy now. Okay, I'm refreshing this. This is done. Now I'll go back to the IAM user quickly. It is an IAM user here. I'll go to the S3 here. You can see earlier I was not able to see any buckets inside the Amazon S3 with ExcelR user, correct? Now I'm able to see all the buckets information over here. I'm able to have trying to read the informations. You can see I can try to access this. I can try to see the objects which has been inside this bucket. But when I'm trying to create the bucket, let me see if I'm able to, or else I can try to delete the information. I'll try to delete this. Let me see if I'm able to delete or not. Permanently delete. I just want to modify the object. What it is telling? Failed to delete objects. What is the reason? It's failed to delete the objects because it is access denied. Because I did not given right access to the specific S3 bucket or S3 services to the user EC2 user. So in the same way, I can try to control the access permissions for database admins or network admins and developers as well. I try to create a sample EC2 user so that he'll get an access to EC2 service like the full access, but he'll get a read access only to the S3 bucket. This is how I can try to create the permission level. Are you able to people get understanding on the topic? You are able to get through understanding the topic for creation permissions, right, everyone? How I'm trying to able to manage the permissions level. Are you able to understand, right? So it is as simple as that. I'm just trying to create multiple users with my admin account. That is nothing but IAM user. IAM is nothing but identity access management. How this access management is managed? I need to go to the root user account. Root administrator account. This is my administrator account since I'm using since from beginning, right? I got a free tier account for 12 months. Okay. I'm being a root user account. I'm trying to create multiple users so that I'll try to assign these permissions to the under my team, like people who are trying to be work under my project. I'm trying to create a different users. Okay. So that is how I try to create this. Okay. Now, what I'll try to do, for example, this user EC2 user has been created. Now this user is not part of any group. Okay. So what happens? Let me try to create a user group here. You can see there is already an existing group created, right? So if I want to add this particular user to that group, I can also try to add that. Add user. I'll open this user. Groups. He is not part of any group. Okay. A group is a collection of IAM users. Users group to specify permissions for a collection of users. A user group can be a member of 10 groups at a time. So this particular user can be part of 10 groups. So what I'm trying to do, I want to add a group to this particular user. I can try to do from here. I want to click on add user group. Which group you want to add this EC2 user? I want to add this to ExcelR user group. So what ExcelR user group, which permissions he got? Amazon S3 full access he got. Amazon VPC full access he got. Let us try to see if he got VPC as well. Okay. Add user to the group. It is done. Now, the created user by me, EC2 user, he should get an access to this particular group. So when I'm trying to open this group, let me see what all the permissions this user got. This group got. If I try to open this group, what are the permissions? The permissions has been assigned with Amazon S3 full access and Amazon VPC full access. Earlier, this particular EC2 user, which permissions I got? Only EC2 full access and S3 read access. Now this user should get S3 full access, and also he should get VPC full access. Let us try to test that as. Okay. So earlier I was not able to delete, right? Let me try to see if I can delete this particular object now. You should get the S3 full access, right? Let me see. I'll go and delete. Permanently delete this option. It is asking for a confirmation if I am okay to delete or not. You see, I am successfully able to delete the object because it got permissions inherited from the group level. Earlier, I tried to control the permissions from the user level. Now, as this particular user has been assigned with a specific group, that group which has been got the permissions of is S3 full access and EC2 full access and VPC full access. Okay, let's see that what else other permissions he got. It also got with VPC full access. Let me see if this user got that VPC full access. Okay. I'll go to the services. I'll go to the VPC. Where is that? I'll type in here networking. Here. I'll go to the VPC. Earlier it is showing the denial message, right? API error, like saying that it doesn't got any access. Now you can see I'm able to see all the read access for the VPC. I can try to see all the settings of the VPCs and everything. You can see this. I'm able to see that. I can try to modify as well. I can modify the settings and everything because I got a full admin access for the VPC as well. So that what happened, the person who is belonging this EC2, who is a network admin, I'm giving him full access to S3. I'm giving him full access to EC2. I'm also giving him full access to the VPC as well. Right? So that's why I'm able to manage the permissions well. That is nothing but a group. So we have tried to create a user. We have tried to see the user has been added to the group. And also we have tried to control the permissions based on the policies. Okay. So this is how this is going to help out the permissions level within the IAM, right? Let us see more understanding on theoretical background. Let me, we cannot leave that IAM user because it is for the security information, right? So we need to make sure that credentials should be securely stored and shared to the required user. It shouldn't be shared to everyone, right? So IAM users and permissions, there will be no permissions by default. Permissions specify who can access to AWS resources and to what actions they can perform on these resources. So as I told you, which user need to access, like EC2 user, what kind of a permissions and what can he perform on those resources, like VPC full access, S3 full access, and the storage and EC2, right? That's what the permissions means. Assign permissions individually to each user. How? So Rob is a developer, he's a designer, he want to access to the Amazon S3. So I'll try to give access to Amazon S3 full access. And Samantha is a database administrator. So I need to give access to only to the Amazon EC2, Amazon RDS service, Amazon DynamoDB, and the Lambda service and data pipeline API. Because database administrator, he had a knowledge on these specific services. I doesn't want to give access to VPC because he is not required to access any network settings. So I'm trying to give access only to the specific services. In this way, I can try to control the permissions. Okay. So these permissions can be controlled with IAM policies. Use IAM policies to assign the permissions. All right. And what are the IAM permissions? Permissions are specified in an IAM policies. How that can be specified? A document formatted in a JavaScript, JSON format, or else the GUI format. If I try to go to the back to the console here, you can see the policies over here. If I try to add the policies quickly, like I want to add a new policy, for example. Okay, he's a user, right? He got all these permissions. Now, if I want to add additional permissions, attach policies directly. You can try to create policy as well. You can see when I'm trying to create the policy. See, I can try to attach the existing policies provided by Amazon, or else I can try to create my own customized policies here by creating policy option. Okay. When I'm trying to create the policy option, you can see, you can choose the service and you can try to mention that, for example, elastic load balancer. I can try to mention which access, read access and the write access. and I can try to click on the resources and I click on save. It will try to create a new policy. I can try to create a policy based on this GUI selection with these options that has been given, or else I can try to create the policies with the help of a JSON language. People who had a knowledge on JSON, they can try to control the access based on the JSON. You can see allow permission, action, elastic load balancer, all the services with the resource, any resources within the elastic load balance, like anyone can access. Which kind of access? Allow access. That's what it is trying to mention here. A documented format in a JavaScript, JSON language, or it defines which resources and operations are allowed. Best practice, follow the principle of least privileges. It is always preferable due to the security reasons to give only the least level of permissions. We shouldn't give always the admin level permissions. We should give only the least level of permissions based on the requirement of the project. Okay. How IAM determines the permissions at the time of request. So you can see, is the permissions explicitly denied? Yes. By default, all the permissions will be denied. Is the permissions explicitly allowed? Yes, if you want to allow it, or else by default it will be completely denied. You need to allow it manually. Okay. What are the types of policies you can do? Identity-based policies attached to an IAM principal, or resource-based policies attached to an AWS resource. You can see identity-based policies means these policies can be created directly to the user level, or else service level. You can directly assign these policies to the service level. That means AWS resources as well. So these are nothing but an IAM permissions. So identity-based versus resource-based policies. Identity-based policies means these policies can be directly attached to a users, groups, or roles. What are the types of policies? AWS managed policies or customer managed inline. You can see these policies, right? What I'm trying to open. These policies are actually given by AWS related policies. Where is that? These are nothing but AWS related policies. When I'm trying to create my own customized policies, I can try to do that with a visual editor or else the JSON language. That's what it means. Okay. Resource-based policies. It can be attached directly to the AWS resources. Example, this policy directly can be attached to the S3 bucket as well. That is done with an AWS inline policy. You can see, right? AWS inline policies. You can see that. You can try to see that, where you can try to specify specific service over here and trying to click that and trying to attach any specific permissions directly to the resources. You can see, try to mention the resource conditions and try to mention, is it specific resources or specific to all resources? You can try to mention that as well, right? So this kind of inline and custom policies will be managed with. Okay, and when trying to go here, IAM roles. An IAM role is an IAM identity that you create in your account that has specific permissions. Okay, so an IAM role is similar to an IAM user. In that, it is an AWS identity with permission policies that determine what the identity cannot do in AWS. However, instead of being uniquely associated with one person, a role is intended to assumably by anyone who needs it. Also, a role does not have a standard long-term credentials such as a password or access list. That means if I'm trying to create IAM user, it requires username and the password. But for IAM role, it doesn't require any username and the password because I'm assigning this role directly to the AWS service, not to the user. That we need to keep in the mind. Just you need to understand the difference simply. IAM user will be directly attached with the policies and groups and everything that will be created to the user level. But IAM role, it will be directly assigned to the AWS service, not to the user. So that's why it doesn't have any username or the password. Okay. So let us try to see where these roles will be visible over here. Let me try to show you an example. Try to cancel this. For example, if I try to go to the EC2. For example, there is a role which has been created. Okay. I'm trying to see this S3. You can see there is an EC2 S3 role. What is the role? Let me try to see that. This particular role got full access to Amazon S3. Okay. Now, this is the role which is named got EC2 S3 role. It got Amazon S3 full access. Now, what I'll try to do, I'll go and launch an instance. For example, when I'm trying to launch an instance, there is a project I want to upload files from S3 service to S3 storage bucket to EC2 server. Then what I need to do, I doesn't want to create any credentials for that. So the person who is trying to create a project, he need access to different services. Like means he need to have a communication between EC2 service and an S3 bucket. So when he try to launch an instance, he want to have that permissions visible. So when I'm coming down, you can see there is an option called role. I'm going to advanced details. You can see IAM instance profile. It is trying to give a role. So you can see it is trying to give a different roles. I'm trying to select EC2 S3 role. So once I try to launch an instance with this particular role, what happens? I'll get a default permission established between EC2 service and S3 service so that I can try to easily transfer the data from server to S3 bucket and bucket to the EC2 server. It will be a kind of a project when you try to do while assignments and the projects within that course, complete course structure. Okay. The role will be used in that way. So now when I'm trying to select a role, you can see simply it doesn't require any username and the password to be created here. Simply I try to create a role in the IAM and that role, it got a full access to S3 so that EC2 can communicate directly to the S3 with the help of EC2 S3. That is a generic difference between IAM user and IAM role. Okay. That is all about the IAM role. And as I told you, group, an IAM user group is a collection of IAM users. As you can see here, I've tried to create a collection of users, right? A group is nothing but a group which is created, which is nothing but a collection of specific users. Okay. This particular ExcelR group, it is consisting different users. And I can try to assign these users as well. I will try to add these users. For example, I'll go to the groups. This is a group which is having only EC2 user. For example, I want to add more users. I'll try to add this user as ExcelR2, ExcelR3, and ExcelR. Add users. So this simply, all these 4 users are part of the group ExcelR group. Okay. So I have created a group, ExcelR group, and these 4 users are part of this ExcelR group. So it is collections of group of users in a single entity. Okay. IAM user group is a collection of IAM users. Users groups let you specify permissions for multiple users, which can make it easier to manage the permissions for that user so that you doesn't require individually go to the each user and assign permissions always. You might have 100 users at a time, right? So you cannot log into each user and try to assign permissions manually. So during that situations, due to that complex situations, what you can do simply try to create a group and then assign all that 100 users to the single group and directly assign the permissions direct to the group level, not to the user level. So that's how it will simply simplify the process. For example, there are 4 users belonging to this particular group. Then I'll go to the permissions. I'll assign specific permissions. Attach policies. I'll assign some specific permission like VPC. Okay. So I want to assign this. I will give VPC read access. So all the 4 members in this particular group will get a VPC read access. In this way, I can try to control the access. Okay. That is nothing but an IAM user. And there is an option called concept nothing but an MFA. What is an MFA? Multi-factor authentication. So what happened when for increased security, we recommend that you configure multi-factor authentication to help protect your AWS resources. You can enable MFA for IAM users or the AWS account root user. When you enable MFA for the root user, it affects only the root user credentials. IAM users in the account are distinct identities with their own credentials, and each identity has its own MFA configurations. MFA is nothing but a multi-factor authentication. It is nothing but an additional layer of security. For example, what is an MFA? For example, you can see you might have use your iPhones or any Google authentication, right? It will try to send you a code to log into specific applications. For example, hardware MFA. You can see these are the devices to log into specific applications. For example, there is some kind of a DO devices and Microsoft devices. What happens when you log into applications? It will ask you for to type a code. So the code will be there inside this hardware tokens. You need to type this 6-digit code so that you can try to log in. This is nothing but a hardware MFA. Even there are nothing but a software MFAs, like kind of a virtual MFA. So you can try to register with some kind of an options like Google Authenticator. You can see this is nothing but a Google Authenticator. you can try to download this and you can try to create an MFA. And we have a Microsoft Authenticator as well. With this help of this, it will try to generate a code. You can try to log into this console. It will try to generate 6-digit code. You can see this. This is how it happens. Okay, let us try to assign MFA to my root account, and let us try to understand how it works. Okay, so what I need to do to go with an MFA, I need to go to the dashboard. This is my root user account, right? I'll try to see if there's an MFA configured or not. You can see my security credentials, manage your access keys, multi-factor authentication, other credentials. I'll go to my security credentials. Right now, it doesn't have any MFA configured. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to assign MFA device. Okay. So I doesn't have any hardware device right now. So I'll try to do you can see, you can try to assign hardware device if you have that in place. You doesn't have any authentication displayed for the hardware. Okay. And you doesn't have any hardware for the security key. I'll try to do a virtual software related authenticator app. Okay. I'm trying to install that. Click on next. I'll try to do ExcelR MFA. I'm just trying to give an additional security layer to my root account. So install a compatible application. Use Google Authenticator Duo Mobile in your mobile. You can try to install, or in the browser you can try to install. Okay. I already have an MFA configured here. You can see. I'll try to delete this. Okay. Now it will try to give me a QR code. Right. I'll try to add a QR code to my authenticator here. I'll try to scan this. ExcelR MFA has been added to my browser. So this will be acted as a authenticator. It is nothing but a virtual MFA authenticator. Now I'll try to do that. So I need to add this code over here. You can see what is the code 007737. And I need to wait for one other code. It is telling fill 2 sequential ports from MFA device. I need to wait for another code 007737. I think it got expired. So the code is 332019, right? And the input is 332019. 332019. You can see MFA device has been assigned. You can register up to 8 MFA devices for any combinations of the currently supported methods, right? Now my MFA has been configured. It is nothing but a virtual MFA I have configured. Now let me try to log off from my root user account. Okay, let me try to see if it is trying to do that. Okay, I'm logged off from my console. Now what I need to do, I need to log back in. So you can see which user I need to log in. Do I need to log in with IAM or root user? Because I am being an administrator, I already got root user account. If any user has been created, you can try to create with the credentials like this. You need to log in with an IAM. Okay, this is the difference between administrator account and IAM user. As I'm a root user, I'm trying to log in with the root user. I'm trying to enter the password. See, it is asking the MFA authentication here. Your account is secured using multi-factor authentication. To finish signing in, turn on or view your MFA device and type the authentication code below. Okay, it is asking me to enter the MFA code. Otherwise, it doesn't allow me to log in. Okay, so I already configured the MFA authentication here 566121. Okay, 566121. 566121. I'll submit. See, I'm able to log in simply. This is how I try to configure the MFA authentication. So even this MFA authentication can be configured to the IAM users as well. That is how it is going to help out. Okay. So I'll go to EC2. Not EC2, actually IAM. I'll go to IAM now. You can keep that access, or you want to remove that additional permissions, you can try to remove that if it doesn't need an additional security. I'll go to users, and if I want to control the MFA, I go to dashboard, my security credentials, and then I'll go and delete this virtual. If you want to remove, you can try to remove. If you want to resync, you can try to resync if there's an issue. If you want to add, additional MFA devices. You can try to do that. That's how it is going to be. Okay. I'll try to remove this. For example, this will be removed. Simple. Now it doesn't, it won't ask again my MFA authentication when I'm trying to initially log in. That is how it can be. Okay. So it is actually trying to follow best security protocols with the help of an IAM. Like famous company like Dow Jones and GE Capital and JMT, they try to use this AWS service IAM user account like a service where they try to manage their security authentications in their organizations. Okay. So this is how we can try to manage the authentication level within this IAM. And also you can try to attach your company level Active Directories direct to the IAM. Active Directory is nothing but a group of users that has been configured within your organization level. So that particular identity federation services like Active Directory and LDAP. So that kind of services can be synced or integrated with this particular IAM, so that you can try to upload all your company. If there is an existing company, there are a bunch of users who has to directly migrate to this particular IAM. Then you can try to simply link it that to Active Directory, and that all that users will be uploaded automatically and synced to this particular IAM. So that's one kind of a benefit as well. Okay. That is completely on generic access. So if you try to completely go through and try to work on more level configuration of permissions roles when you're trying to be in full level or core structure, you will be able to help you with the doing labs as well, like IAM creations, the policies creation, inline policies, group policies, and assignment of different services. Everything you'll be able to do it from yourself while doing the lab sessions. Got it? And if you are trying to go with a free tier account, let us see what all the free tier account specifications it got. Let us see how much it got. Free tier limitations for AWS IAM. There's an identity. There should be limitations of creating a users actually. There will be no charges on creating these specific users, but there are limitations on maximum these many users only. Let me see. Maximum limitations. System thing. So you can see this. The maximum limit for attaching a managed policy to an IAM rule or a user is 20. The maximum character size limited for maximum policy is 6,144, and it doesn't have any limitations of creating users under the free tier. Okay, it is not chargeable. It is a free tier coming under free tier, and you can try to create a number of users as required. Okay, but the limitation should be IAM role for the maximum user group can be assigned policies is 21. Okay. This is the thing. So these are the limitations for IAM as well. So you can try to have that practice whenever you need for creations of this particular users, right? So what I need to do I'll try to create that, need to delete that user which has been created by us, right? Because it got public access, that means that credentials have been downloaded. I need to delete that. This has been deleted. Okay. Now, if I try to go back to this particular thing, if I try to refresh, it won't work, I feel. Error in column, subnets. You can see it is trying to give me an error because EC2 user has been deleted. This will be no longer useful. Document is empty, and I'm trying to refresh this. It won't allow me to log in. See, it has been logged. I have just deleted the IAM user now. Okay, this is done. So in this way, I'm able to manage the permissions level within the IAM service. So these are not chargeable services when you create roles, users, and the groups over here. So you can try to practice whenever as needed. Okay, this is not a chargeable service. So that's it for IAM user account. Any doubts on understanding the IAM service? Any doubts? Are you people able to understand? This is IAM, and that's the completions of complete AWS cloud fundamentals for specific to AWS cloud technology. We just covered most important topics that is required for part of AWS. Any doubts, guys? You can try to come up with the questions. Doesn't see people not actually having any questions or doubts. Is it because due to weekend, like people are free? After deleting, we cannot restore because it's already deleted, right? There is no backup because you haven't created any backup for this. So once you are deleting that user's particular account, it will be deleted. It cannot be restored. Again, you need to have a restore policies. You need to have a different technologies to grab that. So that's why we are not giving access to everyone apart from admin. So admin only have access to delete that IAM users. As simple as that. Someone had a question called users under one group will have exact same access control, right? Whatever the permissions we are configuring under the group level, the same access control will be having to all the users added into that particular group. So group will have a permissions now. So whoever the user, whatever the permissions have been added to the group, that will be by default inherited to the user. Can we log in into the user account from other device? Which user account we are trying to try to mean? I mean the IAM. If you give IAM read access, then from other account, you can try to access the IAM page. But only administrator had the full admin privileges to the IAM account. You need to assign the permissions with the root account. Until then, you won't get an access to IAM. You have to give access. For example, if you want to see, he is a user, right? If I want to give access to the IAM, then I need to create attach policies, add permissions, attach policies directly, IAM, right? You can see, if I try to give IAM full access to this particular user, then he'll get an access to control the permissions in IAM as well. So I need to do that first, but it is not recommended and safe to do that because it is not actually suggestible, right? Because you being an administrator, you doesn't want someone to give that. If there is a person who is actually equal to your designation, you can try to give same level of access, like IAM full access. Okay. I hope it clarifies your doubt, Ganesh. Any other doubts for IAM? Someone had a doubt, Shruti. Can you, one user will exist in multiple groups? Yes, he can exist into multiple groups. He can be actually part of multiple groups actually. So he can have a different level of permissions based on the groups he has been assigned to. For example, this particular EC2 user is part of ExcelR group and also ExcelR group 1, right? So he can be assigned to multiple user groups. Any other queries? Actually, we can assign IAM users to up to maximum of 10 groups. Okay. And we can try to assign maximum of 120 policies. And IAM user limit is 5,000 users per AWS account. And 10 users can be added at a time. I think I'm not. See my screen, right? This is the concept over here. This is the requirements. I mean, maximum possibilities. You can see my screen. Everyone, people who have doubt. So I hope you people got clarification based on the chat which I have just posted. Any other doubts, guys? I see only few people are asking queries. Other people are just idle. Are you people able to understand? This is the completion of complete AWS as part of this program. We have today and next one more day for basic understandings of Azure and GCP that we'll just go through an overview. Any doubts till now? Any doubts on any AWS services? Any doubts? No? All right. Then we can end off the session with AWS now. So I hope you got a confidence on AWS console and the cloud technology, how it's been implemented and how what are the different various services that we'll be able to utilize, correct? If we forget the code, can we enter? If you forget the code, then you need to again reach out to AWS support team. So they'll be able to help you out with MFA code if you try to forget that once you configure. That's out the final option. All right, guys. So let's come to Azure now. So what actually we have done out of this 10 days program, we have actually completely gone through understanding of the cloud, the basic level understanding what is a cloud environment, how the infrastructure works on, what is an on-premise structure, and what are the different types of cloud vendors we could see. And the famous vendors we could see is like Amazon, AWS, Microsoft Azure, and maybe a Google Cloud, right? GCP. So after Amazon AWS, again, the one of the most popular most services is nothing but a Microsoft Azure as. Even it is trying to occupy the current market, which plays an important role. And it does provide different services like how AWS is trying to provide. Even it does have a different benefits, how AWS is trying to provide the services as well, like other cloud service providers. Okay. So we'll try to concentrate on that particular. We try to just a moment. So let us start, guys. Now, what is Microsoft Azure? It is again the cloud vendor where it is trying to provide different types of compute services, storage services, application services, database, networking services, and many more. And even it does have a good market currently, which is occupying, and it does have collaborated with famous companies. Okay. And actually, you people might have aware that Microsoft, how we are trying to use it like kind of an Outlook server applications and other teams, chat boxes, and Active Directory. That is one of the famous applications that's been had been spread over across the world, right? It's been famous as well for the operating system as well. So actually, the Windows Azure, which was earlier, it was renamed as a Microsoft Azure in 2014 as a cloud computing platform, and it has been designed by Microsoft to successfully build, deploy, and manage applications and services through a global network of data centers. All right. So as I told you, in the same way, the regions concept in AWS, in the same way that Azure also has a global infrastructure. You can see Azure offers more global regions than any other cloud provided, with 60 plus regions representing over 140 countries. Okay. So it is trying to tell the comparison with AWS as well. It does occupy more than 60 plus regions and representing over 140 countries. So regions are made up of one or more data centers in closest to proximities. As I told you, regions is a country or the location, and the available data centers which are available within the closest proximity centers. Okay. And it provides flexibility and scale to reduce the customer latency. So as I told you, to have the good usage of these particular services, like all the compute, storage, and network services, these regions and the availability zones, it provides good flexibility so that users doesn't have any issues while trying to access those services with the to reduce the customer latency. That means network specifications. And it provides the data residency with a comprehensive compliance of an offering. That means it will try to have a data availability and with the data durability with the compliance specifications. That's what it means, right? And let me try to see if how where this map's actually navigating to. Let's see. This picture is not that visible. I'll try to show you the map where it is available. Loading the Azure Global Infrastructure Experience. We have seen, right, different AWS centers and different regions and the availability zones in the AWS cloud. So even Amazon is trying to have the same region specific concept. We can see this is actually the part of the world where these regions and the availability zones that has been created across the world, right? It is actually having a 3D look. Maybe they have designed this application. You see this? It does have a different data centers across this particular regions, different parts of the country. I think India should be there. Where is India? This is India, right? You can see Central India, and this is India. Not sure if Zoom works things, but it is kind to give me a 3D representation. It is operating along more than 175,000 miles of fiber access. Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform help you with inventing with purposes. You can see this. Through constant innovation, Azure delivers a secure, reliable, and sustainable cloud that you can trust. So if I try to open the Explore Globe and Infrastructure, let us try this. So these are kind of a different parts where you will be able to see that. Let's take a closer look how different the elements of cloud infrastructure collectively pave the path of your data in the cloud. It has some common points along the way. See, it is trying to tell data centers. These colors are nothing but a representation of a data centers, right? Data centers help connect and employ our daily lives. Amazon data centers are uniquely physical buildings located all over the globe and house of a group network computer servers. As I told you in the first introduction class, right? That is nothing but a data center. It looks like a blocks. That's what it is trying to give us a information. Where inside these data centers, we have a different computers and the servers and the firewalls, networking device, everything will be covered. It seems that data center room, you can see they are trying to provide a virtual intro of the data center location, how it looks like. See, it's actually real Microsoft Office. Maybe they have tried to give us in virtual view. Maybe I just. So these options will try to show you the information of particular data center. You can see announced region with availability centers. Okay. And it is just going to be soon open. It does have a different technologies. When I'm trying to click on some other options, Australia East, region with availability zones, New South Wales. Here is the region or Australia East, and inside this particular location, this data center has been deployed. It has been deployed in 2014. And these particular locations have 3 availability zones. This is how it looks like, right? So, they have given good UI, correct? It's showing in a good virtual way. That makes it interesting. I'm just trying to look at India as well. Where this locations are from. Here it's right. It is United States. We are not able to rotate properly. So Mexico, South Central US, and West US. Here it comes with India, India South Central. And this is India, you can see. India geography, they have 2 availability regions and one is coming soon, right? So what are these two availability zones? It is one in Nagapur. You can see in Nagapur, India, there is a location data center, and one is Jamnagar, India. Correct, and also in the New Delhi. So central India, that is Pune and Mumbai, Nagpur. So this is a South Cloud. This is a South India, where it is a Chennai. It is located. So they are trying to build up, like as I told you about Amazon as well, like soon it is going to Hyderabad, right? Even Microsoft might plan to have a data center implementation in Hyderabad location or Bangalore in different locations based on the market status. Okay. This is nothing but a data center. You can see the different technicians, how they are trying to monitor the performance through a monitoring over there. It is nothing but a network operation center. We'll call it as a network operation center. Okay, this is how the virtually they are trying to provide us. How good it is, right? It is nothing but a software area network operation center where we'll try to monitor the performance of all the servers. This is how it looks like. This is nothing but a mechanical area. They have given the option. You see the data center room over here, the outside, how it looks like. It's a cooling mechanism system. I told you, right? For the servers, it should have a cooling capacity and electronic system that has to maintain the server stability. This is nothing but a cooling system. And evaporations, where the air has to go out, the heat that has to go out outside. That is the evaporation system over here. Water heat exchange systems. They have a different equipments, air handling units. Everything has been configured with the server racks. As I told you, a rack is kind of a box system where all the servers will be placed inside with a minimum gap that has to have under ceiling and upper ceiling cooling systems within power supplies. Okay, data center cooling technologies. This is how it looks like. They have provided a good visibility of these particular. It just looks like the data center, right? It's very good. The server room is the heart of the Microsoft Cloud Massive Computing and Storage Capacity, innovative server blades designed and built under Project Olympus. Microsoft next generation model for open source cloud hardware deliver capabilities of virtual machines and AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and even full platform services like Microsoft 365. Okay. It is a server room is a main heart of this particular data center. I told you, right? This is a server which is having a designated softwares, I mean, not softwares, like different devices, like a servers that has been put into the racks. These boxes are nothing but a racks, and you can see the equipment inside. These are nothing but a servers, devices, routers, switches, and with all the cables attached to it. This is nothing but a proper data center room, how it is visible. And no one are allowed to enter inside. Only the network admins and the data center admins, they'll have an access. They'll enter inside the rooms and they'll be able to configure all the settings. You can see how it looks like. Even Amazon is also trying to have a same data center rooms. You can see you will have an upper ceiling and the power cooling systems that will be configured over here. You can see these are nothing but an upper cooling systems and power systems and everything configured. There is a circular center as well. Just trying to show up as well here. This is nothing but a network room. Okay. Data travels from servers to the network room linked to Microsoft Global Network for data center regions. See how it looks like. This they have a separate network room as well, where it have all the network devices. Okay, so this is how the data center looks like, and Microsoft maintains that kind of an innovation concept, where it is trying to have that all the servers deployed over there, right? And as I told you, if coming to the availability zones, zone is nothing but data centers. It provides protection against the downtime due to data center failures. physically separate data centers within the same regions. Within the same regions, we have a different availability zones, correct? One location, it does have divided to separate availability zones so that it will be acting as a backup options. Like if there is an issue with one availability zones, then data can be backed up to the other availability zones as part of disaster recovery. Okay. So it's the same concept like how AWS used to have, right? Availability zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. It provides protection against downtime due to the data center failure. Physically separated data centers within the same region. Each data center is equipped with the independent power cooling and networking. Like each data center, availability zones have a separate equipment like a power cooling systems, networking equipment, all the infrastructure equipment who is trying to manage. It is connected through a private fiber optic networks with a high-speed internet. Okay. And Azure edge zones. Azure edge zones are footprint extensions of Azure placed in a densely populated areas. Azure edge zones support virtual machines, containers, and selected set of Azure service that lets run latency sensitive and throughput sensitive apps close to your end users. Azure edge zones are part of the Microsoft global network. Edge zones are nothing but, for example, there are some locations which are actually far from the data center availability. Like they might have a less bandwidth to access that services from that data center. At that situations, what actually Azure is trying to do, they are going to configure edge locations nearby that particular location so that edge zones will act as a secondary data center. Like they will have a faster throughput rather than the connections going directly to the data center in the availability zone 1. The connections will go to directly edge zone, so that edge zone is already directly connected into the availability zones. So it will provide a higher throughput and low latency services access. Okay, that is nothing but an edge zone access. And the region pairs, at least 300 miles of separation between the region pairs. You can see between a region to region, how much distance it is maintaining 300 miles of separations. Automatic replications for some services. If you want to have a replication service, like a backup between the one region to another region, you can try to have that configured. Prioritized region requiring the event of outage. If there is an outage of one region, the data can be quickly back up to the other regions and you can have a recovery quickly from the backup location. That's how it is going to helpful. And updates and rollouts sequentially to minimize the downtime. So the rollouts and the updates and the patchings and everything happen during the non-business hours so that it doesn't have any impact to the users who are trying to access these services. That's how it is going to help. Okay. And availability options. Azure is trying to promise us with a 99.9% with a premium storage. So they are trying to tell that your data is secured enough with a 99.9% of 9% of availability within single virtual machines which has been deployed within that particular storage if you are trying to have that. And virtual machine, VM SLA. SLA is nothing but a service level agreement. Protection from entire data center failures. What is a service level agreement? If I am being a user, I am being a client, if I had a company, what is the guarantee if I want to store the data in Microsoft Azure? They are trying to guarantee me saying that if there is an issue with any disaster recovery or atmospheric conditions due to atmospheric disasters, like what I can say thunders or due to heavy rains or any tsunami or kind of for example, there are situations that is happening due to unknown atmospheric conditions. So Azure is trying to promise 99.99% of availability. They can try to have a backup to another data center quickly, like availability zones quickly, and then replicate the data so that your data won't be lost. That's how the securely the data can be transferred from one location to another location. Okay. So that comes under multi-region disaster recovery. You can see one region data can be transferred to another region. Regional protection with data residency boundaries. So these kind of availability options that Microsoft Azure is trying to provide us, right? And as I told you, there is a service called Microsoft Active Directory. Okay. And it is one of the most popular services which being used across all over the world with the famous companies. Let us try to see and understand what is an Active Directory within the AWS. Okay. Not AWS. I'm just trying to get an AWS itself because we have completed. So within the Microsoft Active Directory. So what is an Active Directory? A directory which is a hierarchical structure that stores information about the objects on the network. A directory service such as Active Domain Services, ADDS, provides the methods of storing the data and making this data available to network users and the administrators. What is an Active Directory? An Active Directory is kind of a software where you will be trying to create users, permissions, and authentication services with the help of this Active Directory, which Microsoft is providing. Okay, and this domain service is nothing but classic on-premise authentication service available since Server 2000. Okay, it supports a 2000 level server, Microsoft Windows Server. It occupies almost 90% plus market penetrations and provides forests, domains, organizational units for logical connections and managements of objects, so that you can try to manage the computers, you can try to manage users and the groups with the help of this Active Directory domain service. It requires a domain controller like a physical VM, IAS, and the VM. Its primary value add is a group policy and the local authentication. So this particular topic will be most understandable by the people who will be doing that Windows administration. You might be seeing a administration course, right? Windows administration, infrastructure administration course. So this is kind of a very important topic for them to have. They have a separate course structure, Microsoft administration course, where people who are interested, like infrastructure admins, they'll try to do this Microsoft administration course as well. Active Directory administration, where you being an Windows admin, you will be able to configure all these Active Directory admins. For example, there are 100 users in a company. You want to configure authentication system for them. So you are trying to issue laptops for them, right? In a company, you are trying to issue computers to them. Then they want to log in with the authentication. So you are trying to create a domain and you are trying to push all those 100 users to that domain so that they will be able to log into computers by entering the username password. So that will be managed with an Active Directory domain account. Okay, it's kind of a big topic as well. So Microsoft Active Directory, as I told, it has a forest, domains, and organizational unit. What is a forest? A forest is a logical construct used by an Active Directory domain services, ADDS, to group one or more domains. The domains then store objects for users or groups can provide authentication services. As I told you, a forest is nothing but a logical construct of an Active Directory where group of users will be created and pushed over there. And the groups and users will be assigned so that they can try to log in with their username and the password with the help of the authentication service. What is a domain? In Active Directory terms, a domain is an area of a network organized by a single authentication database. And domain is nothing but a simple database where you will be able to log in with the help of a username and the passwords and the groups and the permissions. So this database is managed by the Windows admin. He will try to configure that domain and try to manage all the users under that domain. In other words, an Active Directory domain is essentially a logical grouping of objects on a network. Domains are created so that IT teams can establish administrative boundaries between different network entities. For example, I can try to create a domain for the network admins. I can try to create a domain for a database admins. I can try to create a domain for the developers. Active Directory domains are controlled by a tool called the domain controller. It is nothing but a DC. The domain controller acts as a domain authority, meaning it is responsible for all Active Directory object permissions, authentications, modifications, and edits. Okay, that is about the domain. What is organizational unit? An organizational unit is a subdivision with an Active Directory into which you can place users, groups, or computers. For example, I have an organization, okay, ExcelR company. I'm trying to create an ExcelR organization unit and I'm trying to create a domain for this particular organization unit. Okay, and then within this domain, I'm trying to add all these users and the groups, right? So that I can place users, groups, computers, and other units. You can create organizational units to mirror your organizational functional or business structure. So the startup level companies, big level companies, they will try to have a different organizational units and they will try to have users and the domain authentication configured. That is the concept of organizational units. Okay. So what actually the need of an Active Directory nowadays? Why is the need and what is the requirement of an active use? Identity challenges for today's organizations. Why identity challenges means you have to know, like each organization should have a separate domain, separate authentication system, separate Active Directory. Active Directory is simply nothing but a telephone directory. For example, in earlier days, you know that we have a big bunch of a telephone directory. Like we have all numbers of people, numbers, and names, the first name, last name, and the email IDs and the phone numbers to contact with. In the same way, Active Directory acts as a directory for an individual organization so that they will have an access to management of the users individually so that it is secure enough. How it is going to be secure, let us try to see. What are the challenges earlier before the AD we have? Explosion of apps, devices, and users outside of the corporate network due to the security concerns. Due to this, apps actually have devices and the users, we have a ceremony nowadays, which has to be individually configured, which actually risks in the increase in the identity attacks and lack of visibility and the control. So you can see because of the cyber threats and attacks due to hacking and everything is happening because of identity leaks. So even you people might have aware, even Twitter is actually being hacked, even Facebook being hacked. So people are most considered and concerned about this security hacks, right? And it evolving compliance regulations with data privacy and security implications. So it is actually having most security related issues with the compliance and audit related access. So in that situations, this is playing a very important role. Demands for product increase productivity in IT modernizations. Based on the applications need and based on the current marketing trends. So you can see there's a demand for increased security level that needs such kind of a tools. Okay. So that's when the Microsoft Azure Active Directory actually occupied most of the market by integrating with specific services or specific applications and specific organizations, like starting level organizations, like low level organizations, startup level organizations to high level organizations. You can see how it has been occupied the market. You can see it has been configured with a Facebook and a Salesforce and a Microsoft Teams and other, gaming applications and computers and a Google platform also using that and different health applications. And you can see the Microsoft is being integrated with an Apple as well. So this AD has been integrated with a different set of applications currently occupying most of the market. That's what it is trying to tell. Identity is a connect your workforce to any app, any applications, this AD can be integrated. That's how this Microsoft has come up with the technologies. Okay. So Azure Active Directory, the world's largest cloud identity service, thousands of organizations, millions of active users, billions of daily requests. You can see 100K plus enterprise customers using Azure Active Directory. And 250 million plus Azure monthly active users. They are still registering. 30 billion plus Azure daily authentication requests. Okay, for example, you can see the MFA account, which I'm configuring, right? I try to create an MFA account. You can see here. Microsoft MFA Authenticator. Even this acts as an authenticator here. This acts as an authenticator. It is nothing but related to the Active Directory. It is trying to provide me an authentication, right? That's what I'm trying to securely access my device with the help of authentication. That is a good example over here to consider this. Okay. Engineered for availability and security, cloud native, hyperscale multi-tenant architecture. Is physical data center protected with world-class multi-layered protection and engineered for maximum availability. Global cloud infrastructure with secure hardware and data segregation. Over 100 data centers across the planet. We have seen that. Secured with cutting-edge operational securities, restricted access, 24/7 monitor, and global security experts. The data center monitoring which is available, we have seen. And robust ecosystem to integrate with their existing tools. Microsoft integrates with a wide variety of partners to extend the value of your existing tools, apps, and services with Azure AD. You can see the application which has been using this Microsoft Azure AD. You have seen that Adobe PDF, you can see that, and the SAP you might have understood. And Workday is an application in our company is using, and Dio application which is authentication. Citrix and Savient. Systematic VIP, it's kind of a antivirus, right? Cornerstone. These are kind of a different applications which are actually synced with Amazon, Microsoft Azure Active Directory. So this is how, that's why it is famous. The Active Directory is one of the famous tools that has been growing rapidly when it is considered with Microsoft Azure Cloud Vendor. So Microsoft Azure Active Directory, it's a universal platform to manage and secure identities. You can connect your workforce to any app. You can try to connect your workforce application, like external application, internal company application within an organization, you can try to connect. It is trying to provide and govern access, like with the security rules and compliance, engage with customers and the partners. So it will try to help you with engaging the customers and when you are trying to work on some particular projects, accelerate adoption of your apps. So you can try to have a biometric authentications, MFA authentications, and additional secure layer authentication that can be happening with a Microsoft Azure Active Directory services. Okay. So you can see Azure Active Directory benefits and features. A cloud-based suite of identity management capabilities that enables you to securely manage access to Azure services and resources for your users. It provides application management, authentication, device management, and hybrid identity. You can see this is from on-premise environment, correct? Now I want to use the resources which has been deployed in the Azure cloud, like Microsoft Office 365, Azure application, the compute services in the cloud environment, and the database services, storage services. Now, how I can try to integrate with this cloud vendor services? This can be possible with Active Directory. You can see your Windows Active Directory, if you're trying to configure at your local on-premise structure, that can be integrated with the Microsoft Active Directory with an open SAML authentication system. This will be kind of a project. So all the users and the groups which has been configured your on-premise integration, that will be quickly migrated to your Microsoft Active Directory, like the cloud vendor. It is simply possible with the help of this Microsoft Azure Active Directory. That's what it is trying to tell, right? It provides application management, authentication, device management, and hybrid identity. Okay, this is how it will be mostly useful. It is configured and it being providing a reliable services nowadays. Okay. Okay. So prove it. So Microsoft Azure Active Directory benefits and features. The key features where it includes single sign-on SSO, self-service password change. What is single sign-on? For example, if you try to go to any particular office or any company you might have seen, so they will have some authentication, right? So single sign-on means the SSO is configured with the domain. So the username and credentials already been configured in the domain. So you will try to enter the password. So it will directly navigate into the company directory. You can try to enter that. So self-service password change. You can try to do a self-service portal. They'll try to provide a self-service portal where you can try to modify the password, change the password, and change the account related to your authentication. You can see multi-factor authentication, MFA. As I told you the example now, Microsoft is trying to provide a multi-factor authentication. You can try to set up, right? The one which we have seen the example. With the help of MFA, you can try to configure the code level authentication service. You can try to log in. And the Active Directory join for Windows 10. So there is an option called AD join, which is available in the Windows OS 10 level. Okay, it is kind of one kind of an option. Company branding. With the help of this Azure Active Directory, you can have a company branding. For example, ExcelR AD or ExcelR SSO. You can try to have your own branding configured with this sync. You can see this option over here from your on-premise environment, how this has been configured to access all cloud resources with the help of Active Directory account. It is very simple having a connection, self-service portal, single sign-on methods with an MFA and other authentication systems. That's how it is very much feasible. Okay. These are kind of various options which is trying to provide us. So I think we are good to resume this topics till now. And the remaining topic, like continuation of the Active Directory and creations of a users, we'll try to continue on Monday. Okay. We'll try to see more understanding on that, because it's more of a theoretical, right? We'll try to resume that remaining topics coming Monday as well. Any other doubts till now, the completion things which you have done till now? I'll show you the console, how it looks like at the Active Directory. And we'll try to log into the AWS, Microsoft Azure, and we'll try to see how it looks like. Okay. Any doubts on understanding the concept today, like a Microsoft Azure introduction, the AWS, Microsoft console, and how we can try to log in with a free tier account as well, right? Yeah, I doesn't want to go much theoretical for today as well, because we have covered most of the theoretical aspects, right? We'll try to see virtually how it looks like the Active Directory as well, more into by logging into the console. We'll try to see how the account looks like. Okay. Let me know any doubts, guys.
Yes, Bala.
You can unmute if anyone want to have any doubts.
Participants. Okay, yeah.
Yes. Guys, any doubts you have? Like you have an option for unmute as well. If you have any doubts, I am able to clarify for the next 5 minutes maybe. Any doubts?
Guys, if you have any doubt now, you can unmute yourself. Or else you can post in the chat box. You have
Yes.
access to unmute yourself.
You have access to unmute yourself.
If nothing is there, then we'll wind up.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
When
tomorrow
we
is
have,
last day.
so for the certification option, you will be able to have that queries cleared by admin team, and you can try to email to that admin team ExcelR EDL email that Amar is trying to provide. You can try to have any concerns regarding the certification.
Yeah, don't worry about the certification material and recordings. Monday is the last day, so we'll explain all the things regarding to the certificates about the next program in the Monday session.
Exactly.
So don't worry about that.
So Amar, shall we? I mean, time do we need about the clarification for that? The last 30 minutes or the before 30 minutes? When you need the time?
Last 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's fine for me.
10 to 20 minutes is okay, right? For you?
Yeah, 10 minutes fine for me.
10 minutes is fine. Okay.
Yes.
So tomorrow, admin team will be able to help you with all the queries.
Not tomorrow, on Monday.
I mean, not tomorrow. It means
Yeah.
it's the next session on Monday.
Yes.
So you'll be getting a clarity on the batch information and how to register a course within the ExcelR. What are the feasibilities and options that is going to be provided as part of ExcelR batch, like the 50 days program, 50 hours program. Okay. What are the different batches are available? Any doubts, guys?
I think nothing. Then,
I think no
we'll
questions,
wind up,
guys.
yeah.
So I think we can wind up the sessions. I appreciate your time. Happy weekend. Thanks, everyone. We'll meet you on the Monday then. Bye-bye.
Yeah.